Hello, and welcome to the final installment of Rime of the Ancient Mariner. It's dangerous to sit with a sword. Alright, so the Ancient Mariner has come back to his own country, and he is rowing a boat. We left off with him rowing a boat from his sunken ship down to, or rowing the boat to, back to the town. So he's concerned with wanting to be forgiven, or shrived is the word he uses, by the hermit. The hermit is almost portrayed as a priest of some sort, even though the story never directly says he's a religious man. He does seem to pray. He lives out as a hermit does in nature. And this is who the mariner turns to for absolution or for forgiveness for a sin of killing the albatross. And I guess disrespecting nature in general. Alright, we'll begin on line 574. 570. And now, all in my own country, I stood on the firm land. The hermit stepped forth from the boat, and scarcely he could stand. I don't know why he can't stand up. Okay, so he's there, and then they make it back to land, and then the mariner says to the hermit, "Oh, shrieve me, holy man." The hermit crossed his brow. "Say quick," quoth he, "I bid thee say, what manner of man art thou?" Alright, so the mariner here does say that he is a holy man, and then he does make the sign of the cross. So he may be practicing some sort of, or related to the church in some way, but again, he lives out with nature instead of in the town with the church. According to the gloss, it says, "The ancient mariner earnestly entreateth the hermit to shrieve him, and penance of life falls on him." Alright, and then the hermit says to the ancient mariner, "What kind of person are you? Like, why do you need to be forgiven?" And the mariner continues and says, "Forthwith this frame of mine was wrenched with a woeful agony, which forced me to begin my tale, and then it left me free." Alright, so you have something important going on right here. He says at that moment that the mariner, or that the hermit asks him, "What type of person are you?" He says he's overtaken with a woeful agony, and then this agony forces him to begin his tale, so he tells this whole story of setting out on a ship and killing the albatross and interacting with these nature spirits and then learning to appreciate the wonders of nature, the holiness of the natural world. And he says at the end of that the agony leaves him free after he tells his tale. So he tells the hermit he's like overcome with this feeling of agony, or this feeling that disturbs him. And then when he tells his tale, he feels better about it. And he says, and he continues and says how this affects him for the rest of his life. So if you remember, I think it's part 4 where the two spirits are talking about what they're going to do with the ancient mariner while he is asleep. One of them says he's done penance, and he has penance more will do. So this is his penance that he has for the rest of his life in order to be forgiven. The mariner says that on line 582. "Since then, at an uncertain hour, that agony returns, till my ghastly tale is told, this heart within me burns." And according to the gloss, it says, "And ever and anon throughout his future life, an agony constraineth him to travel from land to land." Okay, so this is the punishment that he has for the rest of his life, that sometimes this agony or this terrible feeling overcomes him, and he has to tell his story to somebody. And he says it causes the heart within me to burn, so he's like inspired to tell the story to someone. He continues on, 586. "I pass like night from land to land, and have strange power of speech. That moment that his face I see, I know the man that must hear me. To him my tale I teach." Okay, so he says that this experience, or this agony, gives him strange power of speech. I really like this. So he's able to, he has some sort of power over other people when he's relating his tale. So what I really like about this is I think this is the best example for writing or best explanation for writing or creating art in general. If you feel something very, very strongly, it inspires you and gives you what the Mariner here calls strange power of speech. So an idea that is very, very powerful has the ability to shape like your or the way you physically move throughout the world and casts a spell on other people. So this is the part of the poem that I like the most, or the idea of the poem that I like the most, is that when we are inspired, it gives us physical power over others. Like our inspiration as we try to communicate it gives us almost like a magical power like the Mariner has, with his like glittering eye that was able to hold this wedding guest who he's telling the whole tale to, able to hold him there. And he concludes that stanza by saying, that moment that I see his face I see, I know the man that must hear me. So there's something about like people he sees, he's like, this person needs to know the story. And then, like happened at the start of the story with the wedding guest, he tells the story to the wedding guest. Apparently that agony was burning within him, and then he saw the wedding guest and was like, this guy needs to hear the story. And then the poem shifts back to the start, or to the original setting, where you have the Mariner telling his story to the wedding guest. What loud uproar bursts from that door of the church, or of the wedding reception? The wedding guests are there. But in the garden bower the bride and bridesmaids singers are, and hark, the little vesper bell, which biddeth me to prayer. Okay, so he's telling the story to the wedding guest, and then the party moves, I guess, from inside to outside. It sounds like a courtyard in the garden bower, but the bride and bridesmaids are singing. Okay, so this is a raucous party, man. They probably had a little something to drink, and now they're all singing outside, and there are many bridesmaids, and this wedding guest probably really wants to be at this wedding reception, I mean, because they're fun. And then Vesper Bell, or the evening bell for prayers, is heard in the background, and so the ancient Mariner addresses the wedding guest. O wedding guest, this soul has been alone on a wide, wide sea, so lonely 'twas that God himself scarce seemed there to be. O sweeter than the marriage feast, 'tis sweeter far to me, to walk together to the kirk with a goodly company. Alright, so the Mariner says, yes, wedding guest or marriage feast is fun, but what's even better? Going to church with a bunch of people, or walking to church with a bunch of people to the kirk. So apparently that's his favorite thing in the world now, is to go to church with people, even better than rocking wedding fest with a loud bassoon and bridesmaids singing, people drinking and singing out in the courtyard. Nope, not as good as going to church, according to the ancient Mariner. Back to 605. To walk together to the kirk, and all together pray, while each to his great Father bends, old men and babes and loving friends, and youths and maidens gay. So he really, really likes going to church to pray. And again, you go back to the Christianity as the dominant, like, religious practice for the Mariner. Even though you have all those nature spirits and it seems like there's a whole bunch of deities out in the world that the Mariner has had personal experience with. So you have this mixing of this like polytheism and monotheism. But he's back in society, and they're practicing religion, or he likes to practice religion in a Christian way. He uses Ben's the Great Father, so we can assume this is like the one Christian God. But it's interesting that you have this mixing of religions for the Mariner, but he does go back to monotheistic Christianity. But he explains how the two relate a little bit in the next couple stanzas. Farewell, farewell, but this I tell to thee, thou wedding guest, he prayeth well who loveth well, both man and bird and beast. Okay, so he mixes, he says, don't think that religion is just, or God just exists like inside the church when you're praying. He prayeth well who loveth well, both man and bird and beast. That everything that's created in nature, that's also God's creation, and you can be with God there too. He continues, he prayeth best who loveth best, all things both great and small. For dear God who loveth us, he made and loveth all. All right, and then you have a footnote down there saying that Coleridge was kind of, somebody said The Ancient Mariner is good, but I don't really see a moral in it. And Coleridge is like, ooh, I feel like I put too much of a moral in it. Which is interesting in the story, because you have the wedding guest and the mariner talking, and then the mariner tells his tale. So he's finished his tale, and then he says, and the moral of the story is, everything that exists is God's creation. You should respect that too, and don't go around there just killing albatrosses. And then you have that third-person narrator finishing off the poem. The mariner, whose eyes bright, whose beard with age is hoar, is gone, and now the wedding guest turned from the bridegroom's door. Okay, so the mariner finishes his tale. He gives his moral of the story. You should respect everything that exists. Man, bird, and beast, all God's creation. There's God within it. And then the mariner leaves, and the wedding guest is left by himself. Now he can go to the reception, but he doesn't. He turns from the bridegroom's door. He went like one that has been stunned, and is of sense forlorn. A sadder and a wiser man, he roams the morrow morn. Okay, so it says the wedding guest feels like he has been stunned and is since forlorn or forsaken or left behind. And I'm not sure if this, or it's not obvious if he feels forlorn, he's like left out because he's left out of the wedding feast, or because the Ancient Mariner gave him this knowledge and then left him alone with it. But at the end of the poem, you have this idea that something about wisdom makes us sad. He's a sadder and a wiser man the next day when he wakes up. That there's something about gaining wisdom or insights into the world that makes people sad. And it doesn't spell out exactly why that is. It could be forsaken, like the more you learn about the world, the more knowledge you have. Possibly that like the greater mass of humanity doesn't have, so you feel like you're more isolated with the responsibility of that knowledge. But it's not exactly clear why he's sad. Alright, that finishes it up. I hope you enjoyed, or made it through, or this was useful for somebody. I might post a little analysis video on this. I might. But if not, fairly well, and I hope you're enjoying your COVID captivity. Perry, we're done. Aye, we're done, Perry.